Good morning.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
You look glowing
Oh, thank you.
with this new moon.
Yeah, I'm feeling these new moon vibes. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So feeling the new moon vibes, yeah?
Yeah, I am. I'm
What,
feeling it.
what are we
Feel,
calling in?
what am I calling in? Man, all of it. No, I'm just anything possible.
All the vibes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just calling in amazing heightened energy, just free flow, I think too, like just not having any sort of block to the flow of what I'm creating at this moment, just having it free flow. And also tapping in. I think, a big message, we were talking about this the other day, a big message is like tapping in and plugging into the things that give you the energy that you want.
Yeah.
So making sure that, I'm unplugging from the things that I don't want and plugging into the things that the energy I do want.
Yeah.
So that's been great.
I've been still doing the abundance meditations and I'm really focusing. I love them. They're amazing. And really just focusing a lot on like it's out there. Let's just call it in. Let's make space, create space,
Yeah.
and let go of what we need to and call in abundance.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite quotes around abundance is we do not create abundance, we create limitations. So
Right.
our birthright is abundance, right? And I know Deepak Chopra talks a lot about that in that
Yeah.
challenge. But just that it is our birthright. And I was thinking about some of the questions that people have for our chat today. And um, yeah, I was just thinking a lot about that and how our birthright is joy and happiness and gratitude and grace and beauty and love. Like those are our birthrights. And there's these things, that happen, these ways and worries of the world, or these layers in our lives that um, can seem like those things are hidden from us
Right.
and unobtainable, but truly that's what we're made of. That's who we are. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, anyway.
So in this new moon, feeling all that abundance.
Yeah, I love it.
Making space, girl. Make space.
I love it.
So I think, just given your expertise and, given that I've received Reiki from you and have felt your gift of Reiki, I think a great place maybe to start is to just chat a little bit about, what Reiki is. I know we had a question about what healing resources does Reiki entail, and just opening the chat with like, what is Reiki?
Okay, yeah. Well, how much time do we have?
What isn't Reiki? Let's start with that.
Literally, what isn't Reiki? That's so funny. I love that. Yeah, of course. So basically, the definition of Reiki, I'll start there and then I'll move into more of like its healing properties and what it entails. But Reiki defined is an energy technique, a Japanese energy technique for stress reduction and relaxation that promotes healing. And Reiki is comprised of two Japanese kanji, so it's actually like two separate kanji. Rei, meaning universal or spiritually guided, and Ki is life force energy, or you may know like prana in yoga or Qi in Chinese. So life force energy is basically in any living thing, plants, animals, us, humans. So anything that has life force energy, Reiki can enhance or restore the vitality. So that's also, again, like what isn't Reiki? It's not just for humans, it's
Right.
for plants and animals too. Um, so yeah, and what's really amazing, the universal, the Ray part of Reiki, the universal or spiritually guided, means that it's of the highest levels of consciousness, and that it can't do harm. So it respects our free will. It won't impose itself on anybody. So it's really important that if you are experiencing Reiki in any form, either through a session or like a guided meditation or something like that, that you allow yourself to be open to receiving. Because if we're closed off and we're not open to receiving, then the energy won't flow to us just because it respects that free will. Um, and then, more of like, what does it entail and how does it heal? So it's a complementary therapy. So it works alongside of and enhances Western healing as well as other Eastern healing modalities. So it can be used alongside a meditation practice, a yoga practice, acupuncture, crystals, even, therapy.
Sound, sound baths.
Sound baths. Again, what isn't Reiki?
Yeah.
what can you not do with Reiki? But it really just will enhance like whatever it is kind of partnered with, and all of those healing abilities that maybe those things or those properties have themselves. When you incorporate Reiki, it enhances it. So for example, I'm also a crystal healer. So I can really see in my sessions or just, throughout my home when I'm working with my crystals, that I feel the enhancement of those already beautiful and already healing properties. And then in my meditation practice, when I meditate and I go in stillness, I feel a calm and a peace and a centeredness. But when I incorporating Reiki, that feels enhanced. And not only do I feel a calm and peace and centeredness, I also am healing and going deeper and healing those blocks or injuries that are maybe keeping those beautiful feelings from lasting longer. And they won't last forever regardless, because we're human, but and things always happen in our day-to-day lives and have happened. And some things also are carried through of our ancestral injuries or DNA, past lives. So, but I can feel it going deeper and healing those things that are maybe keeping me from feeling that calm and that peace for a longer period of time. And then just to speak on maybe one more point, because again, I could go on and on forever with this question. It's such a great one. Thank you to Hannah who brought it up. And so I'll say with my yoga practice too, I was really resistant to yoga for a long time because I'm not very flexible. It's really hard for me to be in like poses for a long period of time or stretching. But I started yoga practice the beginning of this year, and I found incorporating Reiki into it made it easier for me to continue that practice, because you practice yoga, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So pigeon pose is super hard for me, like really difficult.
That's my favorite pose.
It's become my favorite.
Hip openers. Hello.
I love it. Yeah, it's become my favorite, but honestly it's difficult for me. And instead of like, just giving up and pulling out of that, I'm able to lean in and stay in that practice longer and really feel into like not only the physical pain, but maybe the emotional pain that's coming up because of whatever blocks are being held like in my hip area. So physically and emotionally, I'm able to like sit in pigeon longer. And because I'm having like those deeper experiences with like how it makes me feel, and incorporating Reiki into that healing, then it has become like my favorite, even though it's still hard and uncomfortable, but it's become something I really love. So those are just some examples of how Reiki heals and can be used to enhance our current practices.
And I think that, we definitely want to speak about your healing journey as well, and how you sort of even came to be such this amazing healer that you are. But I think even thinking about, even I think about the context of our relationship and like how we met, like Reiki was totally involved, both like more on like a meta level, but also on like a literal level where I was, you know, signing up for a Reiki 2 training, and we were walking down the street, and I had run into Mark and Kelly, our neighbors, and we're all walking our dogs, and Mark had mentioned to me, he was like, "Oh yeah, like you have to meet Ashley. She's a Reiki master and all these things." And it was like right as I was like learning more about it and sort of like becoming curious about what it meant, and that like Reiki even like brought us together, and how we formed a very like quick, close relationship around Reiki, but also it's just sort of a crazy story about how Reiki even brought us together.
Yeah, well, to even take that one step further in the synchronicity and divine guidance and ordinance of all of that, that morning I had ran into Mark, our neighbor, walking his dog, and we ended up walking the block together. And usually we just like chat for a little and maybe we're going in different directions, but we ended up walking the whole block together. And he didn't know that I did Reiki, and it came up for some reason, which I thought for some reason he had known, because obviously I love it, talk about it pretty frequently. But yeah, so I had talked to him that morning, and then he was like, "Oh, you don't know Meli? She lives like right over here." Showed me your house, which I was like, "Should you be doing that? Maybe I'm weird. I don't know." Showed me her house, and I was like, "I can't believe I've never met her." And then that night we met, and I lived in this neighborhood for almost 2 years. You
Yeah.
had for 9. I mean, way
Yeah.
longer. And so, yeah, it's just amazing how we can come together in like the perfect timing, because if it had been any other time, maybe there wouldn't have been. I'm sure there would have. I love you so much, but you know, you never know.
No, it's incredible. And I mean, even as you share and talk about Reiki, and it's so clear that you're so passionate about it and you're such a wonderful healer, like it's so hard to convey like what it's going to feel like until you experience it. So I'm always like, just try it out, right? Like, if you're not open to it, it won't happen, right? Because it respects your free will. And so when people try it and they're like, huh, what? How does it work? And you're just like, exactly. We just need to try these things out.
Yeah, totally. I've experienced that so much more with having to do Reiki at a distance right now, and virtually, more so than I've ever done, obviously.
Right.
And just like, even I've had, clients come to me who would come to me in person, and they're like, "Whoa, can we just keep doing this even after? Because I don't want to battle LA traffic." And, amazing. I'm seeing that even more, like just how you don't have to be in person. It's just as powerful, and it's just having that like open, because energy doesn't know time and space. That's such like a human illusion, time and space,
Right.
so energy can transcend that. And that's why even when I imbue Reiki into meditations, you'll feel it if you listen to it 9 months, 3 years from now, yesterday, like you're going to feel that energy because it's imbued into that meditation or into that experience. So yeah, that's definitely a mind-boggling but really cool part. I actually read an article recently, to get too much on a tangent about distance Reiki, but that had a really amazing analogy, because it's been difficult even for me to explain, because it's not tangible. It's like, it's
Right.
there, it works, you're gonna love it,
Right.
trust. But this analogy was when, like phones came out and FaceTime and this technology, and like even us doing this right now, it's like, well, how does that work? And we still don't really know how it works, but we do it and it works. It's sort of that same, there's, these wavelengths transferring across the air or whatever that connects us on this Instagram live or on FaceTime or Zoom. And it's just like that. Like, you just know it works, and
Yeah.
don't need to know how
Yeah.
necessarily.
I'm going to take it a step further and probably even compare it to like a fax machine, because I still don't understand how fax machines work. And I
I
like to think I'm quite smart and intelligent, but I just don't get, like, me and one of my best friends have like a running joke of like, 011. It transmits zeros and ones and it creates a picture. Like, is that what happens? Like, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, exactly. Just try. It will get,
Exactly. Just trust you're going to get that fax. You're going to get that Reiki. We're going to keep it moving.
yeah.
So I want to bring up, I know we have our Chakra Curious webinar, which is up on Melilla Health's YouTube if you haven't seen it. But I want to take a minute because I know it was a question and talk about like tuning in and thinking about chakras and how can we tune in and sort of monitor when we have maybe blockages or when we're burdened in some way. Because I know it was a question like, how do we know if we do even have a block in one of our chakras?
Yeah. Well, it's, I think exactly what you said, just taking that moment to tune in and listen to our bodies. And also what we were talking about kind of when we initially jumped on this live. It's my first time doing one of these, so I'm like, what do I call it? When we jumped on this conversation, this beautiful connection of etheric energy, was that our birthright and our blueprint is, you know, grace and gratitude and beauty and compassion and joy and love and truth. And so just tuning into your body and listening to like when you don't have those feelings and maybe identifying where in your body, not maybe, that will help with identifying maybe the chakra that's out of alignment, either overactive or underactive. Because if you're like, oh, I have, you know, really bad headache, obviously, like, have you drank enough water today? And like going through the steps of how maybe what manifested in a headache. But if you have maybe chronic headaches, are you having some sort of block in like your third eye chakra, or maybe you have headaches at the top of your head, that would be more your crown chakra. So more where you're seeing like kind of this consistency, and not just like, oh, I'm dehydrated, I'll drink water and feel better, but really, you know, maybe it's even not tuning into my inner guidance, I'm not hearing my intuition freely, you know, not having like the inner peace or connectedness to spirit. So really just checking in like where you're feeling uncomfortable emotions or sensations in your body and doing sort of like those cross checkings. But like you said, the Chakra Curious webinar will give people a lot of information on sort of just like basic chakras, where they're at, how you feel when they're balanced, how you feel when they're over or underactive, and then utilizing that information to check in with your body. Which is on, like you said, the YouTube, but I can also paste, I think I already had it copied. Yeah, I'm going to paste the YouTube link into the chat. So then people can just go right to the YouTube. But
this is not your first time on Instagram Live. I've never even done that fancy comment chat business, girl.
well, I've been in chats before, so that helps, I guess. But yeah, I think, you know, that's how I would start there, because our bodies obviously store this information and speak to us all the time. And at the core of it, we are energetic beings. So when there is something out of alignment energetically, the best way that our body communicates to us is manifesting something like physically, mentally, or emotionally. Mm-hmm. So really just listening and checking in, and remembering that so I'm summarizing, remembering that your birthright is joy and peace and love and compassion and health and beauty and joy and all those things. So just checking in when you feel out of alignment with that.
And not placing judgment that maybe you're feeling off. Like we all, you know, if we think about this idea of balance, right? We all ebb and flow within this idea of balance. And so to, you know, experience that without judgment, I think is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you are also an advanced crystal healer. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, I know you mentioned that Reiki is obviously a complementary technique, so it can be used with crystals, but let's talk a little bit maybe about, you know, crystal healing in general. So yeah.
Yeah, well, crystal healing is basically the use of crystals in layouts on your body, or you can create crystal grids in your home to activate certain intentions. And if you don't have, enough crystals to do like a grid, because it does require, some grids require quite a few, just use like the crystals that you have and maybe put them in a nice formation. You don't have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on crystals just, to have this crystal grid that you think is gonna, hold this intention for you. If you feel called to do that, absolutely do that. But I always recommend listening to your inner guidance and releasing expectation when it comes to like what you should do, right? I know you love to say we should all over ourselves. It's like
Yep.
favorite phrases. And what you should do with crystals, or you should do with anything. It's never what you should do, just listening to yourself and listening to your guidance and what you are being called to do. So when I work with crystal healing, like in a session, for example, that's when I do layouts on the body. So there's like a general 1 through 7 chakra layout where I have a crystal that pertains to each chakra in the body, and that will enhance and help clear, again, enhancing with the Reiki energy, helping to clear any blocks that are in those specific chakras or energy centers. And then when I'm feeling into the energy in maybe a specific chakra, I can build an additional like grid like I would in my home on your body to even further enhance maybe some like clearing or removing of energy. And then crystal grids in your home are amazing because you can use crystals that pertain to the intention that you want to set. Like maybe you want to call in more love into your life, whether that's love for yourself or love from another, or to another. Then you can use crystals that align sort of with those healing properties and create a grid in order to place that intention and have that intention like pull in stronger. And then I also I have crystals on me, around me all the time for different, that was my dog snoring, different reasons. Maybe I'm going into a meeting or a conversation, so I have a crystal with me that helps like open my throat chakra and help me really speak clearly and communicate clearly. Maybe I have, an important opportunity coming up, so I will use like green aventurine, which is the stone of opportunity, or pyrite, which is the stone of abundance, to just like help in my intention of like manifesting the right sort of opportunity for me. So yeah, that's a little bit. Do you have any specific questions about crystal healing or anything on top of that?
Well, what about cleaning your crystals?
That's a great one. That's a great one. So cleaning your crystals is really important, clearing their energy just as if you would clear your own. So there's different ways of doing that. You can run them under water, but I would make sure to, if you don't know the Mohs scale, MOHS scale of your crystals, to check in with that, because selenite, for example, is really like, I think a number 2 or really low on the Mohs scale, which means that it will actually deteriorate in water, even purified water. So that's not the way you'd want to cleanse that one. So there is some research that you would need to do to make sure that you're cleansing them so you're not hurting them. You can also put them in the sunlight, which clears and charges them, but you also want to be careful because a lot of like quartz-based crystals, like amethyst. So amethyst is actually a quartz crystal that's like purple.
Mm-hmm.
So if you leave, and like rose quartz, for example, if you leave those in direct sunlight for too long, it will actually diminish the color, and it will kind of it'll still have the healing properties of rose quartz and the healing properties of amethyst, but it will just look like a quartz crystal. So then it might be hard for you to identify when you go to use it as a tool. So water, sun, you can use sage, incense, Palo Santo, Reiki, you can use sound. So if you have like a singing bowl, or sometimes I'll put on like binaural beats in the background and I'll be like cleaning my house and dancing around, and it's just like part of, setting that intention to clean and clear my crystals as well as I'm cleaning the house. So using like adding it into a ritual that you already have makes it really easy to remember too. There are some crystals that require even more cleansing and clearing, and those are more typically like the darker crystals that hold more of and absorb more like negative energy. So like black tourmaline, for example, you're going to want to clean that like and clear that a lot more often because it just like absorbs and absorbs and absorbs. Um, there are some crystals that are self-cleaning and self-clearing, like kyanite is really amazing. I have that in a lot of places, so I'll actually put crystals on top of kyanite because then it takes care of and like cleans not only itself, but like radiates with the energy around it. And selenite too is actually self-clearing and cleaning. But again, like there's so many crystals and like just making sure to like do your research and
There's a lot of research to do, and I'm a crystal novice, but there's so many, and there's so many different ones, and they're all so beautiful.
I
I
know,
also just like to look at them. Like they're just pretty.
I know, I know, they're beautiful. I know. Well, and I think with that, like not getting overwhelmed, I think we were talking about this a little bit too the other day, like not getting overwhelmed. And again, thinking I should have a quartz, I should have or I should have an amethyst, like the major, like pretty well known crystals. Like go into a crystal shop if you feel called to and listen to the ones that are speaking to you, and then maybe have a few and start out small. And because there is a lot of research, and if you just start out like buying bulk on Amazon or something, number one, you might not have a genuine connection to them, and number two, you're going to be overloaded with information, and it's almost like I've noticed sometimes that it's just like it's homework, I don't want to do it.
Right, right.
So yeah, when we can go back into crystal shops, just go in, feel called to go in and have them kind of jump out at you, and that would be my suggestion.
They'll just happen like that. They'll just jump out.
Yeah. Catch.
So I definitely want to spend some time and talk about sort of your call to being a healer. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that journey and your own healing journey and how, you became a healer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I think we all start a spiritual journey from the moment we're born, right? We're spiritual beings having human experience.
That's also how that happens, right?
Exactly. So many interconnections here happening. I love it. Yeah, I truly believe, we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, and this journey is a journey of remembering like where we come from and who we are. And I luckily grew up with amazing parents who always told me to like follow my intuition, trust my gut. And I had a lot of spiritual and religious like experience in my life where like I knew I could talk to God or whoever that is for you at any moment. And so I'm really thankful for that. And I also grew up in an amazing place, like right outside Yosemite National Park, small town in the mountains. And actually, speaking to like my crystal journey, we would go camping like every weekend, and I would collect quartz and granite, which is like native to that area. I didn't know it at the time, like what those minerals and rocks meant. They were just rocks that like, I again like have vocabulary to now, but they were calling to me, and I would collect them. We still have so many in our front yard at my house. And when I moved to LA for school and to continue my adult life, I obviously was exposed to like more culture and like the vocabulary around crystals. So that's actually where my journey began in healing. Not necessarily being a crystal healer, but having crystals start speaking to me and healing me. And then like a few years ago with my Reiki journey, I actually received an intuitive message. Again, like so grateful that I had that encouragement to always listen to my intuition and trust my gut. But I received this intuitive message to Google healing with hands. And at the time, I didn't know anybody that practiced Reiki. I'd never had a Reiki session myself. I was kind of still like getting into, again, like crystal healing and like the healing world and understanding what that meant and like chakras and starting there. And basically went down this like hour wormhole on Google and discovered that healing with hands is sort of like a description of Reiki, which is like so crazy to me that it was like calling to me. And as the more I've learned and connected with like other Reiki practitioners and frankly even clients who maybe, you know, aren't attuned to Reiki, it is something that calls to you. Um, so then I spent a good amount of time researching to find a teacher to learn from, because I also received another intuitive message that this was something that I needed to pursue professionally and needed to devote my life to it. I just didn't know how soon or how far down my path, but it was definitely something that I knew was going to be a part of my life. And so I spent a good amount of time researching a teacher. And because I'm, you know, a very spiritual person, I'm also a very grounded person. I have a good balance between my left and right brain. And especially at that time, I feel like I was leaning more into my left brain, like more logical thinking. And so it was really important to me to find a teacher that was like accredited in some sort of fashion. So I found Colleen Benelli, who's like a co-director of the International Center for Reiki Training. She's actually based out of Oregon. And I was like, this is it. She's like so legit. And I'm going to learn so much. And I'm going to have, I'm a professional member with that organization now. And I was like, that's going to be so important, you know? And so I took like levels 1, 2, and master with her. And basically as soon as I could, all like pretty much back to back as quickly as possible. And then I just kept receiving intuitive guidance that I like needed to leave my last job and pursue this full time. And throughout just like the attunement process and the classes and just these last, I think it's been like 3 years now, I've just learned so much and like uncovered so much of who I am. And I've known and had a sense my entire life that I wanted to help people, because I always saw like the beauty and the potential in people, even if they didn't see it within themselves. And again, like not really having vocabulary behind that until I learned Reiki, is that we all have this light inside. We're connected to the divine source within, and the ways and worries and layers of injury in our lives, our past lives, our ancestral history, our DNA can cover that light. So, you know, it may seem like some of us have a light and some of us don't, and that's not true. We all have that light, and we're all special and all beautiful. And anyway, so Reiki gave me that like vocabulary of, you know, uncovering and healing those layers so that we can all shine our light a little bit brighter. And I'm so grateful to be attuned to such a beautiful energy that helps me do that for myself and for others. So it's a little bit of my journey.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's so beautiful that you receive these messages, right? These messages, and you listen to your sort of inner guides. And I think that's it's such a beautiful thing. And I just sort of, what came to mind as you were sharing was, I mean, I'm wondering for those who feel maybe disconnected in some way. And I feel like right now, like what came up for me is I feel like in some way we all sort of feel a little disconnected right now, just given what's happening in the world. And so like, how do we listen to our intuition? It's that was, I don't know why that question just sort of came up. Like, how do we do that? And I mean, I think of course, like tuning inward and being open, I think are probably the two things. But what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Tuning in and just having an open mind and an open heart. So important, so key, and letting go of expectation. So I've found that I've had to overcome expectation and spiritual resistance in my journey, and will continue to. It's a journey for a reason. But just that letting go of that expectation of like, well, you know, if I'm going to be doing this work, then I need to be clairvoyant and I need to be a medium and I need to like see visions of people when I touch them. And like, you know, it's not always going to be the way that maybe it's perceived by someone else.
Right.
Everything's so unique to you, and there are different clair senses. So if you feel like you're not hearing your intuition, I would recommend researching clair senses. This is something, you know, I could again talk about forever, but I know people have lives to live, and so do you. Um, so I don't want to, yeah. So I would recommend researching the clair senses. So clairvoyancy is probably the most popular and what people hear the most, like someone who's clairvoyant, which means clair is clear, and voyant is clear seeing. So someone who sees images or visions, and that's how they interpret their energy or intuition. There's claircognizance, which is clear knowing. So it's just a general like knowing of your intuition. There's clairsentience, clairaudience, you know, there's pretty much for every one of our five senses and beyond, there are ways that we can interpret our intuition and our energy. So how do we hear it is really, how do we hear it? How do we interpret it? And doing that research and listening to your inner guidance, but also like learning about these things, that there are other ways to interpret our energy and our intuition, because it's never not talking to us. It's never not guiding us. We are receiving messages from the universe, you know, spirit, God, whatever you believe in. We're always receiving messages through our relationships, through the things that we read, through sometimes even TV, through synchronicities like you and I meeting, and just beautiful things like that. We're always receiving messages. So it's having that open mind, that open heart, that awareness, and continuing your learning and continuing your curiosity and your questioning of how do I interpret that for myself. Because that was a big thing, a big learning for me was like, again, like I have to see visions and it's like not happening for me, but I've always been able to like hear like, hey, Google healing with hands, you know, I didn't see that, I heard it. So knowing
you.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you joined me today on today's chat. I'm also grateful to have you in my life and to know you and be connected to you.
Love you so much.
You're such a gift.
You're such a gift.
And check out Live Life Reiki Studio on the gram, on their beautiful new website. And thank you so much for joining me today. I mean, we continue to collaborate, so it's not like, you know, bye, see you later.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I'm looking forward to the next one, and I can't say enough. You know, what an amazing job you did editing our Chakra Curious. There's Frank again, snoring. Our Chakra Curious webinar. So I think it's still in the chat. I don't know how that works, but I do recommend anybody really interested in learning more about their chakras and energy work and tuning in and listening. You have such beautiful guidance and advice in that webinar as well. And it's great. And there's, you know, obviously stay in contact with both of us. We'll continue to do things in the future, and you have amazing offerings as well. And yeah, this was so great. Thank you.
It was, of course. And you have a bunch of events. You have something coming up on Monday, right? You have a bunch of things coming up.
Yeah, so Monday I am back on with Ella Stream on Twitch, which I think I see in the chat here a couple people from that. Hi, thank you guys. So yeah, back on with Ella Stream at 2 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv. We'll be doing the Ocean of Holy Love meditation again and staying on to chat a little bit more and hang out. And then Tuesday, I have a heart chakra talk and Reiki meditation. And Saturday, next Saturday, not tomorrow, I have a sort of a continuation of the Chakra Curious as a chakra and crystal workshop. at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So yeah, and you can find all the information for that on my website, livelifereikistudio.com.
And then we have our healing circle in a few weeks too, our monthly healing circle.
Yes.
Yeah.
June 9th, right?
That sounds right. I don't know, what day, we're Friday. Today's Friday, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. At 12 p.m. Pacific time. I love that.
Well, have a wonderful rest of the day, wonderful weekend. Thanks for hopping on with me.
Thank you. You too. Enjoy your beautiful 3-day weekend and the beautiful weather, and love you.
And I'll see you on a walk probably later today.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.